Okay, so today we're going to talk about area of trapezoids. First of all, remember that trapezoids only have one set of parallel lines. That's why they're different from all our other quadrilaterals. Okay, our other quadrilaterals that we've talked about have two sets of parallel lines. Trapezoids are special because they only have this one, and you can think of these other lines trapping in our parallel lines. That's why it's called a trapezoid. Okay, so of course all of these are going to be trapezoids. And the formula that's on our formula chart for area of a trapezoid is area equals 1/2 of my first base added with my second base times my height. And I know that formula looks a little weird. There's an extra step that we're going to have to do that's even harder than the triangle, but it's really not that bad. So again, our formula is area equals 1/2 of the first base plus the second base times the height. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what information we were given. For this trapezoid here, Jaden, what do you think we would call base 1? Which one do you want to be base 1? The 12 yards or the 18 yards?
18.
Okay, the 18 yards. So that's going to be base 1. Okay, and so I'm going to put that as 18 yards. Now, do you guys think it's going to matter which one I call base 1 and base 2? No, and the reason it doesn't matter is because we're adding them together. And in adding, order doesn't matter. Okay, but we do have to make sure that we don't call the height one of our bases. Okay, so if 18 yards is base 1, what would base 2 be, Noah? The 12 yards, exactly. That would be my second base, so that's my 12 yards. Then that means my height is the 8 yards, and that should make sense because remember we talked about the height being a perpendicular line to one of the bases. Here's a hint for you on trapezoids. The height is always going to go between the two bases. It's always going to connect the two bases together. That's going to be your height on a trapezoid. Okay, so that's 8 yards. Now the order of operations that we're going to follow in this does need to be pretty specific. Just like we talked about in PEMDAS a few power standards ago, we have to do parentheses first. We see parentheses in our formula, so we will always add the bases first, then multiply the heights, then divide by 2. Okay, so we'll add our bases together first, since that's what's in parentheses. Then we will multiply that answer with our height, and then we'll divide all of that by 2 so that we can figure out what the half is, or half of that number. Okay, so for substitution, let's write our formula again, because the more we write this formula, the more we'll remember it and be more familiar with it. Okay, so area equals 1/2 of the base 1 plus the base 2 times the height. Now I'm going to substitute in what I know. Of course, the 1/2 is going to stay there. My base 1 we said was 18. Base 2 was 12. And my height is 8. Now when we start to solve this, again, we're going to do 18 plus 12 first. And 18 plus 12 would get me to 30. And then we still have to multiply that by 8 and figure out half of that. Sorry, I miswrote that. Once we've added our bases and technically gotten rid of our parentheses, now we can do 30 times 8. And 3 times 8, everybody, is 24, and then just add your 0. So 30 times 8 is 240. And our last step that we can't forget is to take the half of that 240, which also means divide by 2. So 240 cut in half. In other words, what's 24 cut in half? 24 cut in half is 12, and then tack on my 0. So I'd get 120 yards squared. Remember, our units and area are always squared, so 120 yards squared. Okay, let's go to the third one now. We're going to skip to the third one. On this one, it says, what is the missing measurement? So again, just like we were working backwards with triangles and parallelograms, we're going to have to work backwards with trapezoids. So we were given the area of 24 miles. Okay, we're using the same formula. Area equals half of my base 1 plus my base 2 times my height. Now on this trapezoid, what do we want to call base 1, Juliana? Okay, we'll call base 1 the 7 miles. That's fine by me. I don't know why I keep dotting that. Okay, so base 1 is 7 miles. And if base 1 is 7 miles, what does base 2 need to be, Kayla? The 5 miles, exactly. So that's my base 2. Do we know the height, everybody? No. And this is not here to confuse you or make you think there's a triangle involved. It's just to show you that the height would be from here to here. Remember, it connects the bases. Technically, they could have put the height here also, but we want to show you multiple representations. So this is supposed to be the height, and it's not there, so we leave that as the unknown. We do know the area, though, and the area is equal to 24 miles squared. So that's some information we already know. I'm not going to fill in the order of operations on this one since we're going to have to work a little backwards and differently. But let's go straight to our substitution. So we'll write the formula one more time. Area equals half of my base 1 plus my base 2 times my height. Now we substitute in what we know. Do we know the area this time? Yes, we know that that's 24 miles. So for A, I'm going to substitute in my 24 equals that 1/2 still. We said base 1 was 7 plus base 2 we said was 5 miles. What we don't know is the height. So I'm going to leave that as just H, an unknown number. Kaylee, what do you think the first thing is that we should do to solve this? Add the 7 and the 5, exactly. So 7 plus 5 would give me 12. I still have my H and my half, and that's all still equal to 24. Now at this point, what do you think we would do next, Isaac? Exactly. Multiply 12 with 1/2 or divide it by 2. So if I take half of 12, that would give me 6. So I have 6H is equal to 24 then, because half of 12 is the 6. Okay, and just like we were solving equations last power standard, my 6 is being multiplied with my unknown variable. So to undo that multiplication, I'm going to do the inverse operation, which would be to divide. I'm going to divide both sides by 6, and I get that my height, that H, that stands for height, is equal to 4 miles. Remember, that's not squared units since that's just my height of my trapezoid. Questions on that one? Okay, I'm going to let you guys do the other two, and then we'll go over them.